this is the Daily Mail on the front page of Monday, 22nd of March 2021. And this is completely misleading because the outrage that the protest was against was the role and the behavior and the policies of the police. Now, of course, it's very simplistic to say just the police. In view of the police behavior against the peaceful protesters and mourners of the murdered victim of serial anti-women crime, who was Sarah Everard. The Daily Mail and the anti-democratic forces and elements in the country, including in the Boris Johnson-fronted cabal, have actually distorted everything about the policing, the police, rape, violence against women, and racism, all of this. And the Daily Mail is in denial of the existence of racism, just as the corrupt Society of Editors of Lee Street Papers and others have been in denial about the existence of racism, the perpetuation of racism. Bristol is one of the places where, for historical and actual ongoing reasons, protests against racism and racist policies are justifiable every single day. Protests don't take place every single day. In fact, protests in Bristol don't take place for even years. But they are justified, and protests are justifiable if they took place every single day. So that's the front page of the Daily Mail, top of the front page of the Daily Mail today. And the blazing outrage is completely a misleading headline. And the Times has the picture of the events in Bristol, but it is not running anything different. The narrative is that police were hurt in Bristol riot over right to protest. So it's the police were hurt, which is fine if it's part of the evidence of what happened. But the emphasis by the Times is not on the main event, the main reason why the protest was held, which is the contents and the implication and the impact of the latest anti-democratic, fascistic kind of act of parliament that the Conservatives are going to pass. Severely undermining the concept of the right to protest. So that's the Times' kind of coverage there, that one. So what they do is they have put the phrase right to protest at the end of the heading, which should be at the beginning of the heading. And the Murdoch scum, which is owned jointly by Murdoch with the Times and the Sunday Times, has got a similar heading to the Daily Mail. And it is saying that Yobs in Bristol ran rampage, which is rampage there as well, but the rampage the Sun is describing is Eob's. So there is no actual content. According to the scum, there is no content to the protest. There is no argument. There is no philosophical, moral, or ethical reason for the protest. Now, of course, they are saying that anyone even moving an inch constitutes illegality. This is the reign of the fascistic, no protest kind of Britain, which is what they were protesting against. And scum is following yesterday's Sunday Times report that members of the House of Peers are earning, or on a racket of earning illicit money under the cover of the membership of the Peers, House of Peers. So that's the scum's kind of coverage or cover up of the truth and the wrong focus on the Eob aspect of the protest. Now, kill the bill has been a slogan that has been used for a very long time by various groups. But as our narrative says, these riots, whatever the form or whatever the name given to them by the scum and the Daily Mail and the other right-wing, reactionary, anti-democratic organs in Fleet Street, they actually don't constitute substantial political action. What we are saying is that the so-called left in Britain is very seriously overstated and overhyped and over-promoted in terms of the image that they are given by these likes of this scum, who want to discredit the actual argument, they discredit the actual politics, the real substantial politics behind the resentment against this bill. And kill the bill on this occasion is serving the bill in the House of Commons that the Conservatives are giving legal status, Act of Parliament status, if you like. That is the bill. But it looks kind of exciting to some people. Kill the bill. That never happens, and that is not the purpose of political protest. And we don't subscribe to anything literally like that. We subscribe to the ideology and the actual narrative and the political arguments, the moral arguments against the bill that contains dictatorial powers, against democratic rights to protest and assemble and criticize. And there is this promotion for the idea of policing as it is now. It exists in this country. And that is a promotion for this fascistic daughter of migrants, fascistic and completely corrupt Priti Patel. And now she is leaving nothing to the imagination. Ulrika Johnson is exposed as a pervert, sex-hungry pervert, who is desperate to stay in the news, in the kind of. So that is the brazen advertisement for her by the corrupt scum. Ulrika Johnson is a racist Firebird. And we are looking at the Financial Times, which is promoting the business education, so-called online learning. And it's an advertorial, it's a kind of packed advertising for various courses. And it's overhyping. Now, the deficit, the emptiness in that headline, promoting MBAs, is that none of the MBA degree holders or certificate holders anywhere has delivered anything amounting to a remotely resembling justice, social justice, economic justice. So this is an empty kind of promotion for an empty cause, that is anti-societal cause, anti-equalities cause, anti-rights cause, if you like, an agenda. And the briefing items on the Financial Times, the right-hand side of the Financial Times, are again devoid of morality and ethics. And it is promoting the licensed law traders. It's saying that lawyers start on Grand Seal claims. Remember, the Grand Seal was one of the recipients of hundreds of millions of pounds of public money. That is, the public are going to pay for these by taxes and other means. Most of the multi-billion looters and robbers that operate by having the government of the day serve their agenda are allowed to do the looting and the robbing by the court system. No court has ever sentenced any of the big kind of looters and robbers to any criminal kind of regime in any penitentiary, any jails or a prison. Compare that with the benefit street. People who are very poor or in poverty and are caught receiving money or wanting benefit money of a few £100 a month are derided, condemned, and morally disenfranchised and deprived of any entitlements in terms of legal humanitarian entitlements to decent income and decent support. And as we said before, climbing the Himalayas must be made a criminal offense. And we should talk about the last kind of 100 years of attacking the Himalayas and the mountains. These attacks constitute crimes against the environment, crimes against Mother Planet. And there is a recognition in the Financial Times, big read, page 21 of the Financial Times today, which says that altitude sickness, Himalayan disaster highlights climate risks. Now, why have they been saying the opposite for the last 100 years, whether the Financial Times has existed or not? And there is a obvious thing about housing. UK's housing supply needs to be increased. Of course it does. But this is only the tip of the iceberg, that admission. Housing is the biggest engine for maintaining poverty, disenfranchisement, and displacement of people, and deprivation and denial, and perpetuating inequality at every level. The Labour Party I mean, it is a disgrace, but the Labour Party is actually absent. It's like a dead entity. It's not politically active or alive. And to remember that even Jeremy Corbyn kind of praised within maybe quotation marks, Keir Starmer's forensic skills. I mean, that showed that Corbyn was an idiot. He didn't actually understand the depth of the stupidity in that praise. I mean, Keir Starmer is a faker. And his physical appearance, all his gear, his facial expressions, all of those are constricted and constricting. And what he does is come across as a dummy, as an absolutely packaged dummy. This is not a leader of a democratic movement or a democratic party or democratizing kind of tendency in the UK that the UK needs. And on every aspect of finance, housing, employment, advocacy, rights to protest, Keir Starmer has killed the Labour Party off. I mean, if it wasn't killed off already by the stupidity of Jeremy Corbyn's unfit for purpose leadership, so-called, or from charge. I observe at close quarters or from close quarters the disaster that was Michael Foot as leader of the so-called Labour Party. Of course, Michael Foot correctly is given credit as an author and a thinker and all the other stuff. But thinking and authoring must not be judged or assessed or evaluated based on the fact that they are written books or written treaties or written accounts or written contents. The substance, the purpose, and the impact and the application to cause or causes that these things have together or separately must be the real criteria. So, for example, although Michael Foot is given credit as a thinker and intellectual, when he wrote a book praising Beaverbrook, I mean, Michael Foot came across as a complete and absolute emptiness. He wrote something, but it was an emptiness. Because Beaverbrook did not deserve the kind of accolade and the praise that Michael Foot heaped on him. Beaverbrook is a colluder. He was a crook who was given a lot of promotion by Winston Churchill because of his colluding, corrupt kind of role and behavior and tendencies and propensities. So Michael Foot, although he was an intellectual, which I say factually is correct, but the contents of his intellectual kind of abilities and contributions left most of the issues and most of the demands in society for democracy and for holding the crooks to account by democratic means. He failed to address any of those. That is in his writings and in his other contributions as a kind of intellectual in that category. When he was made a kind of member of the government and he became a cabinet member, and when he was in opposition, equivalent positions on the opposition, Michael Foot didn't deliver. So what I'm saying here is a contrast to Corbyn as an idiot, which is what I call him as a leader in post. I do not therefore conclude that Corbyn should have been targeted for demonizing. Remember the distinction I'm making. I uphold his human rights to be respected and acknowledged for his humanity. That is a different thing than or from saying that Corbyn intellectually was a small one, was a small fry, and he was not fit for purpose. He was not fit for the purpose of delivering a robust, rigorous, powerful, consistent, highly moral, highly universal and transparent opposition to the crooks, the conservatives, who have been in power since May 2010. This is the 11th calendar year since that disaster that was possible to be conducted for the Tories' benefit because of the stupidity and corruption and short-sightedness and racism of Gordon Brown. We shall not be talking in any detail about Gordon Brown in this part, but just to put all of these things in context. So home truths, when the UK's housing supply needs to be increased. Home truth refers to housing, which is an issue that on the 20th of September 2012 was addressed by Jeremy Corbyn in a piece that appeared in his name in the Communist Party Morning Star. And Corbyn said that housing crisis need not be there. It is an avoidable crisis. And I was the only broadcaster on that day. And I have been the only broadcaster about that piece who is given credit to, who gave credit in the whole program that I presented, a radio program on that day. And throughout the presentation, which was my first one on a particular outlet, I gave credit to Corbyn and I elaborated on the bits that he had left out, and I introduced the context that he had left out. And I gave various descriptions and statements of the possibilities that in Parliament, a lot of different parliamentary activities could be carried out. And the morass of housing crisis, homelessness, could be dealt with and removed and ended. I invited Corbyn to contact and communicate. I mean, to this day, this is now what? 9 calendar years since that happened. And I have not been contacted by Corbyn. And yet I said very serious, original things about housing, about the economy, and about the politics and how to harness all of these things together and to end or begin to end the housing crisis, homelessness crisis, substantially in the UK. And the Financial Times is using a trendy word, policing, or it's using the word policing in a trendy way. Without the Financial Times is the person in the paper that is even worse than the Guardian in the denial business that it is in. It always kind of tinkers with the thing. Like this word, the concept of policing, is very topical now for the last 2 weeks at least. So they are inserting the word policing, but in the rest of the contents, they don't have anything to do with representing the demand for policing to be democratized and to be democratically held to real account. So they are giving the kind of facade, the appearance of being on top of things and currently, topically engaged with the current topical activities. But they're not, they're deceiving readers. Or they think they are able to deceive readers. Well, this reader that is myself, they are not most certainly. deceiving. They can't do that one. And there is listen to this. This is typical Financial Times heading. What the oddly uplifting COVID jab says about business life. Oddly uplifting. That is the promotion. That is the kind of sick-making, cringe-making promotion without brazenly exposing themselves as wanting to promote the jab, the vaccine. Oddly uplifting. I mean, subtle promotion of the totally downgrading, kind of going downward slope. And it says, again, policing on the headline, to the first editorial comment, policing the revolving door for ex-ministers. Now, this is revolving door means that too soon after leaving office as minister, politicians go into business. And actually, go into business as employees of business organizations that had links with them, these politicos, ex-ministers, when they were in the posts of the ministers. So they're talking in effect about something very corrupt and very kind of British, but they're not prepared to admit that it is corrupt, or they say that it's corrupt. So these are the few points that we make about all these other topics before we make the topic about Shamima Begum, Sarah Everard, Bristol protest against the police, Tower Hamlets Council neglecting schoolgirls. By schoolgirls, of course, we mean the 4 girls. One's name we only came across in the last 48 hours or so, which is Sharmina Begum, who went to Syria in December 2014, and about whom there is an entry on the Wikipedia, which contains a lot of information that we didn't know had existed, and which are very concerning, and we are going to continue to demand answers to questions that arise from what these children have been put through. We shall be doing all of that in the next parts. Of course, we shall also be updating on the campaign to end the post-elected mayor in Tower Hamlets, and we shall discuss in due detail why this should happen for the benefit of the community.